Hey everybody, it's Dominic Rubino here. How are you? I'm just wondering if this is actually going live. Sometimes I don't know. Because we're doing this as a Facebook Live today. I've made a decision to use more Facebook Lives later in the day so that more of you have a chance to watch these videos and hopefully get a couple of tips and nuggets on how to do things differently. Find out what other guys are doing in their shops, what other people, guys and gals, are doing in their shops to run them better. Because clearly, you've gotten to where you got today by working hard, by doing what you do. And for most of you, most of the people I talk to, they'll say to me in so many words, "Hey Dom, I'm happy where I am. I've worked hard and I've earned a lot, I've achieved a lot, but there's something else I want to achieve. What's the next level look like?" So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the $1 million shop. Now, you might already be a $1 million shop. You might be a $750,000 shop. You could be anywhere. When I say $1 million shop, I'm not actually talking about a $1 million shop, except that it's a measurement. It's one of the levels that people talk about. As a matter of fact, one of the jokes I always ask people is, when I first meet them and we're talking, and I'll say, "Hey, what are some of the things you want to achieve? What are your goals?" Right? No surprise. A guy like me asking people what their goals are, because that's all we talk about, right? But anyways, I'm like, "What are your goals?" And they're like, "Yeah, Dom, I think one day we'd like to get to $1 million or whatever their number is, 6 million, 7 million, 20 million, wherever they are, there's another million mark." And in my head, I always make the same joke and I chuckle to myself, 7 million, that's with the six zeros, right? Because the millions is how we tend to measure success. Now, keep in mind, for those of you who've been watching this show or follow me for a while, we're only talking about revenues here. We really should be talking about profits, right? Because profits is the real measurement. Profits and your sanity, the time for you to get away and do things. However, just for today, let's talk about it from a revenue perspective, from top line sales, because that's where a lot of us think or we're focused on. So whether you're trying to get to your first million or your second million or your third or your fourth, that's great. That's fine. You can, by the way, and you've probably noticed this, many of you listening, watching have already done this. You can get your shop to $1 million just by working hard. You can do it. And you, my friend, you're strong like a Budweiser horse. And yet at the same time, you're probably going to have trouble breaking 1.5, 1.7, maybe 1.8. The only thing that'll get you past that is inflation. If the average job size increases, if jobs get more expensive. But it's really not a way to live. It's certainly not a way to scale. Those of you who've seen me talk at different conferences and trade shows, or maybe who have heard the podcast before, know that I talk a lot about simple systems. And the reason I talk about them is because they work. And the reason I know they work is because I look around and I watch for wise people. I look at what other business owners are doing. And I've been watching for a long time. I've been a business coach, as you know, for about 20 years. A professional business coach dealing with trades just like this. And not dealing with the trade. I'm in the business of the construction business. So I'm on the business side of this thing. And I see what works and I see what's been tried and I see what doesn't work. What doesn't work is the absolute crazy insanity of thinking I'll just work harder and get through this. It's not going to work. Working harder is not going to work. There's a quote I want to share from an author named Sun Tzu. He's a Chinese general, long dead, long time ago. But he's there. All of his military strategies have been written down in a book. It's actually a really good book. If you're a fan of reading in the bathroom, because the lighting's so good, it's a great book to read in the bathroom because it's just a bunch of little short quotes and they're really easy to digest, but they're very, very insightful. And the reason I like reading books on military strategy and applying them in my head to business and business strategy is because those guys have it all on the line. They have lives on the line when they're talking about strategy, so they don't mess around. Here in business, we could say, "Oh, my strategy to increase profitability is this," or "My strategy to get more throughput from the shop is to buy this haunching machine," whatever it is that we need, right? That's the strategy. That's actually a tactic, by the way. A strategy is a larger picture that takes into account a lot of things. We'll get to that later. But when these guys talk about strategy versus tactics, they really mean it. So here's the Sun Tzu quote I want you to think about. His name is Sun Tzu, and it's spelled sun, like the thing that's hanging in the sky that gives us our warmth. And then the second word is Tzu, and that's spelled Tzu. You can find his books on Amazon. They're really good. So The Art of War is the one I like the best. And you can also get it as an audiobook. I've probably listened to that audio 50, 60 times. I just absolutely eat it up. And yet I still have to write down the quote. But here's the quote that I want you to think about here. And we're talking about building your shop past that $1 million mark. And for every $1 million mark you pass. And here's the quote, okay? Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. But tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So let me say that again one more time so you can hear it. Strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. And tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So that's a really good saying, and it's made for us to think about, to just mull over in our minds. If you're walking your dog right now, don't go right, go left. Go a long way so you can think about that. How are you applying that as a business owner in your company? How are you applying strategy without tactics? So strategy without tactics is talking about, strategy for getting your company, let's just use the numbers again, from 1 million to 3 million. The strategy here is we're going to increase sales and we're going to get more efficient in the shop. But then after saying that, maybe after having a big meeting with your team and writing it on the board, but you don't do anything. You don't actually write the tactics down. So that's the first part of his quote when he's saying strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. So you'll still get there, but it's a very, very slow way to go. You need strategy and the right tactics to get there, right? So if your strategy is to increase sales and increase productivity in the shop, then what are the tactics? And then you have to hold yourself, I have to hold myself accountable to doing those tactics, right? The opposite side of the quote is also important to listen to, where he says, tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And that's the busy work of looking busy, of absolutely being slammed all the time. You're just working. You're like, well, we need to increase shop efficiency in the shop. So let's do this and let's do that and let's do this and let's do that. And it's always very reactive, but there's no larger strategy there. It's the noise before defeat. And that came to mind the other day when I was talking to a gentleman, a guy that I met actually at one of the conferences. And we started talking. He's a great guy. And we had arranged to have a meeting. And when I spoke to him, he's like, Dom, I'm so busy. I mean, insanely busy. You would think that with COVID, we'd all be slower. I don't know what happened. I mean, I feel bad for those of you who specialize in restaurant and retail store fixtures, because now is definitely a time you're wanting to change directions and go after the commercial or the residential markets. But those of you who already specialize in commercial and residential markets, man, it's busy out there. Oh my God. Everybody is flying off the handle. But that in itself is a testament to how well you're running the business. So you've succeeded at part one, being busy, of being successful, of having people want to do business with you, of pricing effectively, having the right team in place, having quality control, all of the things that help you push great product through the shop and get installed on the walls at the places we're doing the work we're doing. But that busyness is limiting. You can only run this hard for so long without putting strategy in place. Remember, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, but tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So here's what shops in the $1 million ranges. So 1 million does it. 2 million does it a little bit differently. 3 million does it a little bit differently. And 30 million does it even again a little bit differently. I want to take you through what the simple systems are that those shops are using. And hopefully you can start to put those in place. So here's what working smart means. A couple of things here for you to write down. Remember, come back to the website, download the show notes. Go look at the show notes. Everything's listed for you there. So if you're walking the dog or you're on the treadmill, or I don't know, maybe you're hiking because it's the summertime and you want to come back to the website, it's cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com, and download there's show notes for every single show we do. My production quality, one of my quality control steps in the production of these podcasts is to make sure that every episode has show notes that you can download and read, because some people want to print it off. Some people want to share it around the office. Some people want to share the episode with other people in the office or their business partner or their spouse, whatever it is. So I always make it part of our production standard to have it in a shareable format. But here's the things that business owners are doing in every $1 million increment to grow their business, okay? So if you haven't hit $1 million yet, this is what you got to do. If you're at $1 million, you feel stuck getting to 2, these are the things you have to do. If you're at 2 and you're trying to get to 5, this is what you got to do, okay? All right, so the first thing for working smart is put simple systems in place. Simplicity is the key. It's so easy to overcomplicate things. Don't do that. Always look for the simplest way to do things. For instance, if there's a flowchart of a process that you want to make, it's very difficult to sit down and draw that flowchart because it's hard to think that way. But the simple systems for drawing a flowchart, which some of you will call SOPs, is to start at the bottom. Yeah, take your page, take a pen, pencil, whatever it is, and start at the very bottom of the page with the output, the final thing that the system does. Let's say it's a project management system. What's your project management flowchart? What's your SOP for project management? Start at the very, very end. The very, very end of of a successfully managed project is X. We'll write that X down at the bottom of the page. Put a little box around it because you're going to draw a flowchart above it. And then just above that, before you write anything, ask yourself, what has to happen immediately before that? Maybe it's customer signs off, or customer gives us a testimonial, or customer photos, whatever your final step for the perfect job is. What has to happen immediately before that? And then once you've written that in the box, you've now got two boxes at the very bottom of the page. Just above that, ask yourself the question, and what has to happen immediately before that? And continue doing that, you've built your flowchart. It'll take you 3 minutes. It doesn't take very long. But if you start at the top and go try to work your way down, oh my goodness, months, years, forget about it, put it aside, keep thinking I need to get back to it, it never happens. So you need simple systems. One of the simple systems you need are simple numbers to understand. And the reason that you need simple systems when it comes to numbers is because there are literally thousands of numbers, millions of numbers. Actually, there's only 10. We just keep resorting the order and adding them on. but there are so many numbers to track in the business, you could go crazy trying to track every single number, and that's not what you want to do. So the very, very simple system is to know which numbers to track. Those of you who have sat with me before will remember the exercise you do called I'm going to the beach. We actually call it a beach in Hawaii. So here's the situation. You finally get time off, you and your spouse, say your wife and your kids, you're taking a 2 weeks vacation in Hawaii. So you go to Honolulu, you're sitting there on the beach, and it's Wednesday afternoon. Kids are playing in the sand. You're finally sitting there with your favorite beverage in your hand. Your beautiful wife is next to you. Calm, chill, beautiful day. Sun is shining, waves are waving, everything's great. You look at your watch and you're like, oh, it's almost 1 o'clock back home. So you lean over to your wife, give her a little quick peck on the cheek and say, honey, I just have a 1 hour meeting. That's the only meeting I'm going to have this week. I'm going to run back up to the hotel room, have that meeting, and then I'll be back down here. Kids won't even know I'm gone. And she says, okay, honey, I know what you're doing. Go ahead. You go up to your room and you dial in to your company and you talk to the person in charge while you're away. What are the questions you're going to ask that person to find out how the company's doing? Those questions we can turn into numbers because it can all be reported as numbers. Those numbers are the key numbers to running your business. It sounds simple. You might be thinking, that Dom guy's not very smart. That's a pretty obvious thing. Yeah, it is, but you got to do it, and you have to do it consistently, and you have to make sure that you focus on simplicity, not complexity. It's always about being simple, very, very simple. And so that's important. So that's one of the numbers you have to track. There's a formula that I show people how to use that is also very simple. And that formula, some of you have had me speaking at your different industry events or your local chapters of woodworking chapters, talking about things like the customer formula, the revenue formula, and the 2 profit formulas. Those are also very simple numbers. But once you understand how that formula works, then you really have to just do the tango inside that formula, and you can make that business do whatever you want. That formula, by the way, is the backbone of what I do as a business coach, is knowing how we get more customers and how we change those ratios, how we generate revenue and how we change that, and how we get more profit. There's 2 formulas inside of profit, gross and net, and how we change that to make it work to our favor. Knowing the inputs and understanding the difference between the input and the output, that's a simple system. And those are the things that take you past 1 million to 2 million, 2 million to 5, 5 to 20. And incidentally, remember I talked about the formula. There's the customer formula, the revenue formula, the profit formula. You're really here for profits. I'm here for profits. We're all here for profits. We're not here for revenue. So understanding that for every dollar, you want to make 80 cents, not 8 cents. That's important as well. And that's another simple system. So people that understand that really have a much easier time running a business. And not only that, you've probably looked around your city, your town, your state, your country, and seen people who are running multiple businesses at a time, multiple successful businesses. And you think, They must be magic, or how do they do it, or I could never do that, or how do they have a life? Well, they're doing it because they have understood and have mastered the kind of simple systems that we talk about here, the kind of simple systems that I want to show you, right? So there's the simple systems around numbers. You need to understand the customer formula, the revenue formula, and the profit formula. You need to understand the simple systems that you would want to, or the simple numbers, sorry, that you would want to know from a beach in Hawaii. And then there's another number that we talk about quite often on the show here, and it's called your revenue responsibility per hour. So I won't hit it again. You've probably heard me talk about it, but it's important to understand. Think about how many hours you work in a year at the company, what the top line revenue is in the company over a year, and divide those two together. And you'll find out that maybe you're running a company that has a requirement of $400 per hour. Maybe it's got a requirement of $187 per hour. Whatever that is, that's the revenue responsibility per hour for your company. I've dealt with companies where the revenue responsibility per hour was over $3,000 per hour. That puts a lot of pressure, by the way, in a coaching meeting, but sure makes it fun because we get stuff done. And that company in particular runs four other companies in woodworking and one company in real estate, which is the holding companies that holds all their real estate. So, and they still work the same amount of days that you do, the same amount of time each day. And as a matter of fact, they get away quite a bit to do the things they want to do. That's a family business run right? So you can do that, but you have to understand the power of these simple systems. All right, so that's numbers systems. Let's look at the people systems now. Okay, so people systems are important. And now the people one, you guys have probably heard me say this before, but this is the Lucky Charms part of the show. This part of the show brought to you by the little green guy in the elf hat. Because we're going to talk about culture. And we're going to talk about vision and values. And some of you are already rolling your eyes. And you might wonder, why does Dom keep talking about culture and vision and values? When he knows that it sounds hokey. It sounds frou-frou. It sounds like unicorns and rainbows and Lucky Charms. Well, the reason I keep talking about it is because it's actually the glue that holds everything else together. Because when you leave the shop, like when you're listening to this show right now, and the shop is running on its own and the people in the office are doing what they need to do, how do they know what you want done if you're not there? Well, they know that by the expectations you've set, and that's through the culture you have in your business. You've probably walked into companies before and immediately been able to tell if it's a good culture or a bad culture. Have you ever walked into a restaurant and it's just been horrible service? The food was so-so, management didn't care whether you were there or not, and it changed the experience you had in that restaurant. That's the culture of that place. Think about your favorite pub or your favorite bar or maybe your favorite restaurant. How much different is it than one that automatically turns you off? There's a culture there, and that culture is driven by the leadership, right? Quite often in a restaurant, if it's a family business, it's driven by the family that's running it. But if it's a larger chain, it's driven by the manager. That's why you'll go to one chain restaurant and it's really run well, and then you're surprised when you go to another location of that chain restaurant, and you can't believe how different it is, bad or good, how different it is, and that's driven by the leaders. So that all comes down to culture. And, culture, I love this one. I heard this from some ranching friends of mine when I lived in an oil town. Ranching and oil always go together, right? And they said, Dom, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. That's a good saying. Very good saying. Makes a lot of sense. If I stand for nothing, I'll fall for anything. So what do I stand for as a leader? And I'm going to use me as the example, but I want you to internalize this. What do you stand for as a leader? Are you a leader? Am I a leader who's positive and proactive? Do I take responsibility? Do I take ownership for the things that happen in the company? Because ultimately it is up to me. And I want other people around me to take ownership for what they do as well. If I don't take ownership, they're not going to take ownership, right? So we've got positive or proactive. We've got taking responsibility, taking ownership. How about having some sort of vision? Is this just drudgery? How many of you remember Conan the Barbarian, the first episode, when young Conan was taken and he was put on that wheel that just trod around and around right at the beginning of the movie, right? And then at the end of that particular scene, he's, Arnold Schwarzenegger's the Conan character and he's massive. But all he's done his whole life is just push that wheel. Is that what you're doing to the people in your shop? Or do they have some sort of vision? Do they know where they're going? Or are they just walking in circles? Yeah, man, we're just processing wood. You just put wood in that machine, it spits out the other side, put a little edge banding on it, slap it together, and we got a cabinet, whatever. No, there's something bigger that you do. I end these shows the same way all the time. which is the stuff you guys make, that you people make, is the last thing people see before they go to bed. And it's the first thing people see when they wake up or when they get back into the office. Steal that from me. Use that. Use that to inspire your team to understand the stuff that they're making is the last thing people see before they go to bed and the first thing they see when they wake up. You have an impact in this world. Every little corner, every little cut, everything you attach, all the appliances you're working with, all of those things matter. And the reason that they matter is because people care. They want it to look nice. They want it to look clean. They want it to be reliable. They want to know that they're dealing with a company who's able to match what they want to bring their vision to life in their home or in their office or whatever you happen to be making, right? So bring that to life with people so they understand the culture. The other thing is expectations. Now, what are your expectations as an owner? This is a simple system as well. You just need a handful of rules and you need to follow them like a madman. And I took that quote from Vern Harnish. Now, Vern wrote a book that you might already know. One of them is called Scaling Up, and he also wrote a book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. Those of you who've worked with me one-on-one know that that is the strategic planning tool that I use. That's the framework for business reinvention that I use. But Vern's a great guy, very wise, very scholarly, but he's a scholarly entrepreneur, if that makes sense, right? And so those things drive the team. They have to understand your expectations and your vision and where you're going. But if you don't give them that expectation, they're just going to wander on their own. Okay, so that's another simple, very, very simple system. All right, let's look at the next system, which is communications and accountability. So let's retrack ourselves for a second. We're talking about the simple systems for working smart. We're talking about the simple systems that are going to take you past every $1 million gate in growing your business. The first of those simple systems is to know your numbers. And they're simple numbers, right? The simple numbers of customers, revenue, and profits. The simple system of revenue responsibility per hour. The very simple system for what you would ask if you were calling from a beach in Hawaii. Super simple systems. And you can run and grow your business based on that. The next one was people. And then there we've got culture and we've got expectations. So do you have and are you following simple systems for that? Now we're going to move into simple systems for communication and accountability. That's the reason we have meetings. Meetings are not to meet. Meetings are for decision making. And meetings are held to communicate what's going on, what's going to be going on, and what we need to be going on, and then holding people accountable around the table. By the way, if you want more on this, go to the website, which is cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com, and download one of the meeting scripts I have there. I have the whole script and the agenda. Now, this is specifically for you as the business owner. It's called the Finance and Forecast Meeting Script and Agenda. It is laid out, soup to nuts, front to back, everything you need. But it's how to run an effective meeting to know the business, to know the financial situation of your business. So it's called the Finance and Forecast Meeting Script with Agenda. It's one of the most popular downloads on the site. So go to cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com and go to the downloads section, the free download section, and then download that. Yours to have. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Okay, so communications and accountability really holds the company together. Everybody has to communicate and everybody has to be held accountable to the same standard of work. And so, I've had this happen in my companies as well, where somebody wasn't holding up their end, wasn't doing what they needed to on the team, and I let it go. I let it slide for various reasons. I was too busy to get to it. I didn't recognize it, or maybe I really needed that person. They had some technical skill or ability, and I thought, geez, if we lose that person, let's say Sandy, if we lose Sandy, we lose all the knowledge in that department, and we can't lose Sandy. And then one day, Sandy leaves. Either Sandy leaves on her own or I ask Sandy to leave. Whatever happens. And then the team comes to me and they say, wow, Dom, I'm so glad Sandy's gone. Now we can finally, we can get things done. Sandy was holding us back and I didn't realize it. I didn't know. But I wasn't holding Sandy accountable to doing what he or she would need to do. And because of that, the company was suffering. My people were suffering. And my people want to do a good job. They want to be proud of where they work. They want to accomplish things. And because I wasn't making my decisions and setting the expectations right for Sandy, they weren't able to do their job properly. Is that happening in your shop? Is that happening in your sales? Is that happening in your marketing? Is it happening in your sales? Is it happening in estimating? Is it happening in engineering? Is it happening in designing? Is it happening in nesting? Project management. Is it happening with your foreman? Is it happening with your benchman? Is it happening with your laborers? Is it happening with your purchaser? Is it happening with your drivers, your installers? I don't know who it's happening with, but if it's happening in your company, then you've got to deal with everybody exactly the same way. You need to set very clear expectations about what it's like to be in your company and say, hey, listen, that's not going to cut it, and I need you to act a little bit differently. And then hold them to that standard, and everybody knows that's the standard that you're calling for as the owner. You're calling the shots. All right. So let's move on to one final system, and then we'll wrap this up. And that system is headspace. What's your headspace? The simple systems for headspace as an owner. You know, my job as a business owner is to play mental tricks on myself and fall for them every single time. So where is your headspace as an owner? And this one can be really difficult to get a hold of. And I feel bad. If you're so busy you can't see straight, you can't think about getting a positive mindset, getting in the right headspace. But headspace drives everything, right? It drives everything. As many of you know, I've been business partners with a gentleman named Brian Tracy for many, many years. Brian's a guru in the world of business and business management, personal improvement, and really just everything that goes along with firing all cylinders and running a high-performance team. He and I have been business partners for years and years. And Brian says, and I'll say this from stage, some of you have heard him say it, that thinking is the most important work we can do. It's the most valuable work we can do as business owners. So if you're so busy that you don't have time to think, or as some people say, I'm so busy I can't afford an opinion, then you really need to step back and find a way to step out of the office. I hate to tell you this, but if you leave for an hour, if things are messed up now, they're going to be messed up when you come back. If things are running smoothly now, they're still going to be running smoothly when you come back. Leave the office for an hour. Take a pen, take a piece of paper, go get yourself a cup of coffee, sit down, and think about what needs to be thought about. These simple systems. How can you work smarter? If there's something that's happening in your business that's a bottleneck all the time, find a way to solve that. If you're still stuck, shoot me a text message. Call me. I'm easy to find. You know my text. If you're listening to the podcast, you know that that's how people get in touch with me. My cell's 604-837-8361. Shoot me a text. Dom, I'm stuck. Okay. I'm here to help. If I'm in another meeting, it might take me a few minutes to get back to you. But if you're stuck, you're stuck. Just send me a text and let's talk it through, right? I mean, this episode came from somebody doing just that. He's somebody I happen to have met at a woodworking show, and so we knew each other. But I'm very friendly and open, and if you have a question, I'm happy to answer the question. Right? But I want you to be in the right headspace. Have you ever seen your kids in the wrong headspace, or maybe your spouse, or maybe somebody in your family, like a brother, sister, or parents? How does that headspace affect everything that goes on around them? Maybe you've got somebody in your family who's consistently placing blame, or they're always negative or in denial. Or they have something that we called scarcity, right? Scarcity means if you got something, it means they lost something. It's a really negative worldview. And when you watch them from a distance, you can see that they're destructing themselves. And you want to help them, but they can't think in a different way other than to place blame and see the world in a scarcity mindset. And you see the world a different way. That's what we're talking about here in Headspace. So regardless of which headspace you have, whether you're a person who blames or takes ownership, success can still be yours. You just have to define what that success is and take a step to get towards that. Whatever that step is, whatever that one single step is, it's your responsibility to take that step. So do it or don't, whatever you like to do. But surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself with people that are forward thinking and forward looking, that speak the right way. And when I say speak the right way, they're the kind of people who are positive and proactive. They take ownership, they take responsibility, they have some sort of vision. They're always concerned with excellence. They want to do great at what they do. Surround yourselves with those people, and then let the other people go hang out with somebody else. People who place blame. They make excuses. They're negative. They're in denial, right? They always think that they're losing. Something happened and now I lose. That's the basic character of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, right? That's the basic character right there. Or sometimes Ross Geller from Friends. He's always down. Something happened. Blah, blah, blah. Don't be that person, right? So your headspace as a business owner is definitely a limiting factor to your success. Attitude. My attitude drives everything that I do. And it's not Dom talking. That is just a truism from successful people that are all around you. Look at the people who've comes from broken homes and who have made a massive success for themselves and for the others around them. Look at people who are handicapped in some way. Look at people who are immigrants. I see this one all the time. I see people, and now they've been here for a couple of years, but I see people who have come to the country, didn't even speak English, and now they've got wonderful families. They probably have multiple homes, raising their kids, putting their own kids through college, university, and when they started, couldn't even speak English. And now look at what they've done. They've built companies, they've built families, they've built friendship groups, but they started with nothing. They started with not even the language. And then just by the sheer will and force of who they are, they've done the right things. They've followed simple systems. I got to tell you, I'm not knocking education. I was fortunate enough to go get a college education. But if I tell you what my college degree was in, you would laugh. It has nothing to do with anything I do. Nothing at all. It's just a way of thinking. It's not what you got. It's what you do with what you've got. And it's always the same. If you remember the TV show MacGyver, it was based on that, right? It's not what he has. It's what he does with what he has. He's stuck in some precarious position and he looks around. He's like, I need a piece of gum, a shoelace, and I need the silver wrapper off your gum package. And then he suddenly makes some sort of electrical conduit that unlocks the electrical lock and they get out of this jail cell they found themselves in. That's MacGyvering it, right? It's not what you've got. It's what you do with what you've got. Can you do that? Can you do that in your business? Can you take that charge? And it comes down to headspace. You are the best person to be running this company right now. Anybody who gets their cabinetry or their fine furniture or any finished wood products made from you is lucky because you care about the products you're creating, about the team you're building. The people who are on your team need you. You're creating jobs. Businesses like ours are the backbone of the entire economy of the country. It's not the big automakers and it's not the big airlines and it's not the big banks. They employ a lot of people. Small to medium-sized businesses, we employ way more people all over the country. We are critically important. Every time you're stuck in traffic behind a travel trailer, you can thank yourself because that travel trailer is being driven by somebody who works for you or a company like yours, and they've been able to afford to take that trailer and take a weekend off and go away for the weekend with their family and hug them and kiss them and love them. And that's because you provide them that work. That's the headspace I want you to be in because the work you're doing is very, very important. Okay? So every $1 million threshold, I need you to come back to the simple systems. I'll do this one more time, then we'll wrap it up. We'll have story time with Dom after this, okay? The simple systems. I want you to find simple systems that work for you around numbers. The numbers of what would you ask if you were on the beach in Hawaii? The numbers of the customer formula, the revenue formula, the profit formulas, right? The number of your revenue responsibility per hour. I want you to have systems in place for people, and that would be culture and expectations. Just to make sure the company is running the way you want it to run when you're not there, holding it down all the time because you don't need to be. As a matter of fact, you're probably doing more harm having your finger in every pie than giving the company a break and letting it run and standing back and watching what needs to change, right? The coach doesn't run onto the football field. I mean, he'd probably get demolished if he did. Demolished. But yet a coach still runs a successful football team from the sidelines. Think about that. You can do the same thing. You don't have to run onto the field, right? Do you have systems for communication and accountability? Are you running effective meetings where people know what's expected of them, are moving things along in the business? Even if it's tiny, small steps, they're always moving in the right direction. And then headspace. What are your simple systems for headspace? Maybe listening to this podcast or reading my articles or doing whatever it is here helps you with that. Maybe you find that inspiring. That's great. That's a positive thing to do for headspace. Find more of those things, okay? Hey, thank you so much for checking in. I really appreciate you being here. Remember, there's free downloads on the website, which is cabinetmakerprofitsystem.com. We were talking about communications and accountability, and there are downloads there for how to run an effective finance and forecast meeting. When we were talking about people and culture, there's 2 different downloads on the website about how to hire people and how to hire for attitude, and then how to interview people, including the interview scripts that you can use. It's actually a 2-stage process for the interview script. I like giving people scripts because then you don't have to follow exactly what I said. You can make it your own, but at least you have the path and you can choose which stepping stones you hit, right? So there's lots of tools like that on the website. I hope they can help. If there's anything else I can do to help, shoot me a message. My number is 604-837-8361. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.